Hello and welcome to our second annual Wayne County Transition Conference, Imagine, Believe, and Achieve. I, Marcia Barty, with my co-facilitator, Ranita King, will be presenting and be your host. Before we get started, here are some brief housekeeping tips. Please exercise patience as we're dealing with technology. Please use the chat feature for questions that you may have for the presenters as they present the material. And understand that closed captioning is available by pressing the closed caption button. Now I would like to introduce our keynote speaker, Breon Edwards. Ms. Edwards, are you available?
Yes, I am available.
Okay.
Could you imagine being stuck in a world that doesn't teach you how to be differently abled? A world that struggles with looking past the physical appearance of a woman like myself to see the greatness in me, yet not my limitations? Oftentimes, the world is frightened by disabilities, more than those with a disability. I want to encourage all of you to get comfortable educating society on why we shouldn't feel crippled in a world that speaks about equality. Because honestly, we all have some type of disability. So what's the big deal? Are you stuck holding on to what many said you couldn't be or wouldn't be? Imagine being called names that you yourself would never say to someone's face. Could you imagine being placed in a room with thousands and unable to see? Could you imagine not being able to use your feet so that everyone will notice you and not your permanent seat? I'm proud of all of us because we didn't quit. Oftentimes, many take walking, talking, seeing, as well as hearing for granted, while those of us that are differently abled are learning to maneuver through life, not allowing the gaps between us to limit the greatness in us that this world cannot see. Let's pull back the cover, because those are just some of the things that we struggle with that trigger anxiety and depression for those that have a physical and mental disability. No person is good at everything. So just because you see wheels doesn't mean you see all of me. Now brace yourself and let's get your wheels rolling with me. It is my pleasure to introduce myself. My name is Breon Edwards. I was born with cerebral palsy and scoliosis. I'm one of many that wasn't so lucky to be born into a family that was educated on what disabilities were. So I've always had to be my own voice of reason, not just at home, but in society as well. Over time, I've had the opportunity to come across and even meet others with disabilities, and was asked questions like, how am I okay with allowing the world to see me using adaptive equipment and supplies? Which taught me that I wasn't the only one not living bold in who I am. But no matter who I've come across, I never stopped showing up and telling my story. There are so many that feel as if they have no voice. So with all the encouragement I've received, I've decided that being the voice for the voiceless is who I am meant to be. I truly enjoy being a positive influencer for my community at large. I'm able to provide the world with a vision of someone with disabilities, making a positive impact in the world, no matter the age, race, identity, nor limitation. I will soon be furthering my education in social work, which will award me with the opportunity of working with individuals that need the one-on-one time. I will also be creating a team that can fill in the gap for making changes throughout the world with me. I am now taking real estate courses out of U of M, building community value, because I'll be assisting in doing demolition to old school buildings, turning them into apartments, which will create more living spaces for persons with physical disabilities. The apartments will be accessible to single as well as multifamily households that are classified under income base. Being a consumer through MRS has truly been an incredible journey. In 2019, I was battling with mental health issues as well as family problems, which left me alone to realize I had to climb the ladder that was created for me. Oftentimes, I will talk about working at Disability Network and how I enjoy working with individuals like myself. So to be presenting in front of all of you as a case manager with Disability Network, it's truly a blessing. I was even given the opportunity to do an 8-month internship with a doctor out of Grand Rapids by the name of Dr. Kimberly Barrington. That has also led me to being connected to other organizations, such as Detroit Disability Power, or you guys can say DDP, Community Economic Development Association of Michigan, also known as CDAM. I look forward to serving on state level to assist in creating the positive changes throughout the world. I want to encourage each of you to be inspired to become part of these organizations after finishing school. With everything you all have learned about me, I'm here to tell you to believe in yourself and all that you are. Success is failure turned inside out, the silver tint of cloud of doubt. And you can never tell how close you are. It may be near when it seems far. So stick to the fight of faith, because the hardest hit that you will take is what's going to prove your greatness on the path you'll take. Nothing is too hard for any of us. Yes, society may say that it is, or they may even have us in a different bracket than everyone else. But it's our job as individuals with disabilities, whether it's physical or mental, to show up and tell our stories, even if we have to do it together. I've had to do it where I had to wipe tears and still smile. I've done it where I had to crawl because society made us feel like that was something that we had to do. But truthfully, crawling on my hands and knees was the tallest I've ever stood. And I know there are some people on here that may not know what that feels like or what it means. But greatness is what you make it. And even after I said all the things that I've said, you guys still don't know all of me. Be great. Be inspired. Be you. And be okay with being differently able. All the things that people told me I couldn't or wouldn't be is what molded me into being the great person that I am today, to be presenting in front of all of you. And yes, I know you guys can't see my face. I did it on purpose because my voice has so much power. And a lot of the times the face that's behind it is not what you always need to see. So again, stop limiting yourself. Be great. Go inspire someone else, whether they have a disability or not. Because I promise you guys, I inspire those that walk the same way that I look forward to walking later on down the line. My wheels is what taught me that I am more powerful than I ever thought. So now I just have to push forward. Don't fast forward. Don't rewind. Climb the ladder that was created for you. And thank you all for taking the time out to listen to me for 10 minutes. I have 5 minutes where I can answer you guys' questions or anything that you guys would like to say. And thank you again.
Thank you, Ms. Edwards, for that presentation. Renetta, are there any questions in the chat for her?
There are no questions in the chat.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a great day. This is a great time. This is a great time to grab paper and pen for our next presenter, Mr. Brian Smith from MCTI, and he will discuss all the great opportunities with training and apprenticeships that are available.
Hi, good morning. Thank you. I'm Brian Smith from the Michigan Career and Technical Institute, where we have been providing training for adults with disabilities since 1944. MCTI is the state of Michigan's first vocational and technical training facility and was founded to assist World War II veterans with coming back injured with job and occupational training way back in 1944. And since then, we've grown to become the second largest comprehensive rehabilitation training center in the United States. MCTI blends state-of-the-art training with caring human support services as a recognized post-secondary provider of education from the United States Department of Ed. Our mission at MCTI, move forward, yep. Our mission at MCTI is pretty simple: vocational and technical training with the support services necessary to obtain competitive employment. Our vision is a diverse and inclusive workforce that unites our dual customer, which is one, the students, and two, the employers. The school is administered by the Michigan Rehabilitation Services. You can go to the next screen, Tyler, which is a bureau of the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity. You can move forward a screen. So the school is accredited by the Commission on Accreditation for Rehabilitation Facilities, CARF, and that has been since 1979. We hold 3 certifications in that accreditation. And then the school side of our accreditation is through the Council on Occupational Education since 2015. And prior to that, it was the North Central Association. Next screen is a quick snapshot of our learning model, entering up at the upper left corner where everybody assesses the skills. We close skills gaps if necessary. We train to industry standards, and then you're entering in the lower right of the graph into employment or apprenticeship. An apprenticeship is a form of employment. Next screen will explain our assessment. I mentioned that we have 3 certifications of accreditation from CARF, and one of our most important is assessment. So at the Michigan Career and Technical Institute, you enter in first to a comprehensive vocational assessment, which are abilities, aptitudes, and interests. That can be delivered both online and in person, and allows the student to work with a counselor to develop a career plan, understand strengths and weaknesses, and proper placement and educational development plans. The next screen explains how we work our training programs. Again, we're focused on competitive employment as opposed to supportive employment. Our curriculums are aligned with national credentials, and our employers guide our training to industry standards through industry or occupational advisory councils. Most importantly, from a student's perspective, our training simulates the work environment. 80% hands-on in a shop environment, all the way down to uniforms on a team and punching a time card when you come to work and managing your own leave time. So the next screen details that we have 13 occupational training programs at MCTI, and they're wide ranging, but as you can see, tailored to working with your hands in the skills trades. And all of these training programs have a starting point if you have no experience in the industry, but you have an interest and an aptitude. So you can see here, automotive training and technology, that's your brake work, your struts, your alignments, your electrical, anything that gas does not pass through. Custom cabinet making and millwork, certified nurse assistant, that's a 10-week training and one of our highest placement, very, very important training right now. Commercial printing, that starts with screen printing and it goes through digital printing. So wide range there. We just made a major investment into that training program. It's going from sort of old school FlexiPress to modern day digital. We have a pre-apprentice construction training. One of our popular trainings is culinary. Many opportunities in culinary if you wish to cook. Custodial and environmental technicians, grounds maintenance and landscaping. Electronics and manufacturing. And manufacturing has a lot of new aspects. It's very exciting. Information technology, machine technology, which is your CNC, and also welding, both in the same department. Both huge demands. If you're interested in welding, please talk to us. Pharmacy technician and retail marketing. Okay, the next screen. So we do make impact. It's fun working here. We expand the talent pipeline. We're addressing labor shortages in key industries at all times. The beauty of our training programs is we can change them quickly. We're a post-secondary credential, our certifications rather than diplomas, which allows us to be a little more nimble. The training programs you saw on the previous screens, they are all identified with measurable skills gains. There are 46 credentials delivered through 13 occupational training programs at the school. And our students exit competitively employed, including apprenticeships. Again, our goal is, the integration of individuals with disabilities right into business, and our occupational advisory councils on each of our training programs play an important part in our impact. We also have placement services that's detailed there on the next screen. And we have the Pine Lake Fund. It's what it's called. They serve in the field, you call them job developers, but we start right on day one. When the students are in orientation, they meet with placement services, right? Because the goal of being here is competitively employed. So we start it right away. And then when you leave the school, you have lifelong placement services always at Pine Lake Fund as a graduate of MCTI. So in between day one and lifelong job placement services is a number of things to prepare the student for employment, practicing interviews, developing resumes, tackling the modern way to obtain employment. Our outcomes on the next screen, a little busy screen, but I'll just focus on two areas. The top two rows are our enrollment and retention rates. And you can see the history back to 2015. So we're typically up around 550 enrolled each year. You could see where we started to dip as COVID hit, when we haven't run our COVID numbers since, but that was still a decent year. The retention rate, those are not typos. Our high retention rate is directly related to our pre-trade training. So I mentioned that if students don't have any experience, but have an interest, we'll start with you from square one. And a lot of times that means just reading a ruler. So we take the time in our pre-trade content and training before we get into formal training that students stick around because they're prepared. Next screen is just a snapshot of our demographics. The top 3 disabilities at the school right now are autism spectrum disorder, specific learning disabilities and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. I should say any disabilities is welcome at MCTI. We're specialists in training with all disabilities. You can see by the age demographic here, this truly is transition from high school to post-secondary training. A perfect opportunity for you to plan for what you're going to do after you graduate. The next screen is 60 by 30, as the governor has given us all a challenge to, by 2030, 60% of Michiganders will have a post-secondary credential. And so we have identified 5 key areas at MCTI where we're hitting that mark. And the top one addresses apprenticeships. I've touched on it a little bit at the school, but we have a 4-year grant for youth expansion in apprenticeships, as well as statewide and targeted apprenticeships and inclusion. And the third is Apprenticeship Innovation Network. So in other words, any of your customers students interested in apprenticeships, we can help you with that. We are an intermediary with the United States Department of Labor, which means we can help in the process. We don't have to be delivering the content. We can just be the conduit to the Department of Labor. We have a specific pre-apprentice certificate training program here, 10 weeks of essential skills training and what we call the hard trades, if you will, where you need to understand how to use tools, measure basic math, blueprints, things like that. In 10 weeks, we'll get you ready to walk onto a job site as a general laborer and enter into a registered apprentice program. That one is very exciting. COVID has, here we are, a hands-on training facility. We have been forever, 80% hands-on. So when COVID hit, it was new for us to take all that we could and put it onto distance learning. Moodle is our learning management system platform, and many of our trades, 2 in particular, are 100% distance learning. And all of our vocational assessment now can be delivered online. I mentioned the importance of certified nurse assistant training. That is where we outreach into the community. And we have touched TANF and PATH participants and trained at both Connexus and Michigan Works and continue our plans to do so. So all exciting stuff. How do you get to MCTI? That's the next screen. You must be 18 years of age, adults, and have a documented disability. How do you do that? Through Michigan Rehabilitation Services. They're our primary referral agent. 99.5% of all referrals come through Michigan Rehabilitation Services. So if you haven't found a pre-ETS counselor, transition counselor at your school, please do so. They can give you the pathway here. We also receive referrals through the Michigan Bureau of Services for Blind Persons, the Department of Military and Veterans Affairs, going back to our core when we started as the Veterans Vocational Training School. So that has never left us. Michigan Works would refer through Michigan Rehabilitation Services, and we are both in the same department now. And then, of course, private rehabilitation referrals as well. I think, what's the next screen here? Might be questions. Yeah, that's how to get a hold of me. Smith B, there's lots of Smith Bs. So I'm the 16th at the state of Michigan. Please go to our website. It's newly created. We're pretty excited about that. You can call the school at any time at our main number, and they know how to find me here. But I would entertain any questions that you may have.
So there are a few questions in the chat. The first question is, I saw that 82% of graduates are employed. Are there programs that have higher or lower employment rates than others? Or is that 82% pretty uniform across all programs?
So it is an average number, and it is our standard. So we may have some trades that may dip a little below that, but on average, we're above 80, and it remains our standard. It is rare that it falls below 80. That has been a historical placement rate here for years. So you can count on, if you come here to train and you're committed to employment, we will place you in competitive employment.
Thank you.
You bet.
The next question is, what does competitive employment mean?
Great question. So competitive employment is integrating into the professional workforce with other non-disabled, and you're performing your work, with accommodations if needed, but you're not separated as an individual with disability doing work in what's called a supportive environment. So there's two different ways to work, and historically, not the best, but historically, many years ago, it was sort of, pigeonholing people with disabilities to go into a supportive environment when indeed they could enter into a professional integrated setting with other people and do normal work, right? I mean, 8-hour days. If you're working at what happens a lot with us, I say we train here like the job. So if your job is to stand at a production and assembly machine for 8 hours with 2 breaks and a lunch, that's what we do here too. So we get you ready. And so you might need a lean stool. Those are popular, and we find things out like that for you. So we give you the reasonable accommodation to level the playing field and enter into competitive employment. I hope that
Thank
answers
you.
it. Yeah,
Thank you. There's
Yeah.
2 more questions.
sure.
Which programs are offered through distant learning?
Great. I hesitated at the time. I wanted to say it and I didn't. So pharmacy technician, what a great job. There's a little bit higher requirements. You got to be pretty good with your math, but you would do the type of work where you assist the pharmacist. You've seen it. The person who you have put an order in for your pills and they fetch it and you write and they check you out, that sort of thing. So pharmacy technician, and then information technology, IT, which has been at the school for years when we used to repair fax machines and printers. We still do that, but of course now it's much bigger. And every single class for both programs can be what we call ported out. In fact, we've had our first 2 graduates as pharmacy technicians during COVID complete the entire curriculum online and step right into employment. The IT field, we'd like to see people get ready, just enter into like A+ certification. If you're an IT person, you know what I'm talking about. Get your A+, get into a job, and we will continue to rock with you through an apprenticeship and port out our content, and you're working with your employer, building skills, gaining wages, gaining certifications. So those are your 2 that we're 100% on. Very excited about that.
Thank you. And last question, are all apprenticeships in one of the 13 areas of study?
So yes, we have the ability to be an intermediary with all 13 of our trades as apprenticeships. Part of this big apprenticeship expansion grants that are being released now through our department are intended to not only increase existing apprenticeships, which we know in Michigan are manufacturing and construction. Manufacturing, of course, right? I mean, manufacturing is in our DNA in our state, and that's traditional, but they're looking for non-traditional and expansive industries. So for an example, our first apprenticeship was in culinary, and you don't think about culinary as an apprenticeship, but the DOL was excited for it. They were excited to see us engage again because we have different trades that we can offer this on. Now, an employer must agree on it because the employer is your primary trainer, but employers are willing to engage in new ideas. So it was exciting to be involved in a professional cook apprenticeship, and lo and behold, who would think we'd be in the culinary industry with an apprenticeship? We have those trades I showed you. We have 6 of those trades touch 11 manufacturing industries. So keep that in mind. Manufacturing is broad and deep. So hope I didn't eat up too much time. I really appreciate meeting with everybody. Send me an email, look at our website, call our main number. They can put you in touch with me. Any other last minute questions?
No more questions in the chat. Thank you.
Last thing I'll say is, we've been here a long time, but we are continually modernizing, and we're most excited to say that we've had legislative support and support from the Washington, D.C. Rehabilitation Services Administration It has given us a large grant for infrastructure, the bricks and mortars, the dormitories. It is a full residential facility. We're getting all updated dormitories. We are so excited here that this school will be here for another 75 years. It's going to be a 5-year project, and there are shovels and going on now, and a new roof and all sorts of exciting things. So we're here to stay. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Take care.
Mr. Smith. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Next slide, please. So our next presenter is Ms. Pettiford, and she is going to discuss disability supports available at Schoolcraft College.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today to speak with you. My name is Jessica Pettiford, and I work as the Schoolcraft Disability Support Service Office, and I'm here today to talk about what my office can provide you if you choose to come to Schoolcraft. All right, so our office, we call the DSS office, it stands for Disability Support Services. We provide students accommodations to use in your classes. I'm also able to provide some academic advising and education planning. And then while you're a student here, I would be providing advocacy and support to ensure that you are successful in your classes and feel supported with accommodations. Next slide. All right, so a few terms that we regularly use in our Office of the Disability. The Americans with Disability Act defines a disability as anyone with a permanent condition that substantially limits one or more major life events. An accommodation is an alteration to an environment that would allow a student with a disability to gain access to material and complete a task. And then as an advocate, my role is to ensure that you are receiving appropriate accommodations in your courses, and to, in the event that there's ever an issue with accommodations, to act as your point person to ensure that, we eliminate any barrier that you come across. Next slide. All right, so there's a few things that we ask for in order to make an appointment with me. So one is that you have to be an admitted student at Schoolcraft College. And then the second thing is that we ask for some documentation substantiating your disability. So we take really any one of the following things. So we will take an individualized education plan, and that's typically created by the high school. A 504 plan, also created from your educational school. Or if you don't have an IEP or a 504 in place, we will take a health professional note. So that means it doesn't necessarily just have to be a doctor, it could be a counselor or a therapist. And that note would have to contain your name, your diagnosis, and then it would have to include your medical provider's signature, or at least be printed on official office letterhead. In the event that you want, we do have a verification form that we provide students that is essentially a form that you can give to your medical provider to have them answer some information about your disability and what types of things they recommend you to receive as far as accommodations at Schoolcraft. So we can use that in place of a health professional note if you want. All right. How to prepare for your appointment with me. So it's always best if you can prepare some questions that you have for me. The more you prepare, the more questions I can answer, and the more you get out of your appointment. Sometimes we maybe get into the swing of things too much, and then you may leave with more questions. So it's always good to have things prepared ahead of time. I always ask that if you have the ability to take notes, maybe have something to write on. I always also email students some information as well. And then at certain times, if we have an appointment over Zoom, it's always helpful to have an electronic device ready so that I'm able to walk you through some of the website and where to get some resources. Another thing I ask students is to discuss what accommodations you think would benefit you at Schoolcraft. What have you used in the past that was beneficial? This provides me an idea of the types of things that you're looking for to appropriately give you accommodations at Schoolcraft. When you enter into Schoolcraft, you're going to be given a few student accounts to set up. So it's always helpful to have those set up before our appointment, so that way I can show you how to navigate those student accounts. Our OSLOT access is our student portal where you would register for classes and schedule classes. When you meet with me, I would also create an electronic education plan in that system. The Schoolcraft email is how Schoolcraft would communicate with you. So all of your instructors or different student service departments would communicate with you that way. That's where you're going to get all of that important information. And then Blackboard is an account that is used in the event you end up taking online-based courses. Blackboard would be the portal that you would use to gain access into those. The other helpful thing to have before the appointment is orientation. Orientation is required for all new students, new to college students at Schoolcraft, and it acclimates you to how Schoolcraft functions as far as what services we provide, what departments you would get assistance from. And then there's opportunities to either do like a virtual campus tour or hopefully soon a on-campus tour where you can meet with an admissions person and they can walk you around the campus to show you where everything is. And then the last piece I always like to say is that it's always helpful too to have kind of an idea of what you want to pursue, so that way I have an idea of the types of programs I can go over. If you're looking to transfer, providing me that information, that appointment is always helpful too, because then we can help you create a plan to transfer to a different institution. All right, so what to expect from your appointment. During the appointment, I will review the documentation you provide, whether it be the IEP, the 504, or the medical provider note. And we will discuss, what types of accommodations would most benefit you. A large part of the appointment is reviewing information about the differences between high school and college accommodations, which we'll go over in a slide or two. So I will spend some time going through that and discussing what your new college responsibilities would be in utilizing your accommodations. So we'll mutually set aside accommodations, and then my role would be to create something called an accommodation memo. The accommodation memo is what we use at the college level in place of an IEP or 504. So we do not have IEPs or 504s at the college level. The accommodation memo is what we would create. We'll touch a little bit about that on a future slide. And then if you meet with me to discuss education planning and academic advising, we will work collaboratively to map out an education plan so that you have an idea of what you'd be taking the next few semesters at Schoolcraft. And then as always, I always ensure that I review student resources on campus that you're able to utilize, whether it be the tutoring center, whether it be the testing center, things of that nature, so that you're well aware of all of the types of services we provide. Next slide. Thank you so much. So this is a little chart that discusses the difference between high school and college accommodations. Some of this is what some of these things I won't go over in depth, but one of the major things that I touched on is that an IEP and a 504 plan do not exist at the college level. We will create an accommodation memo for the students in place that will act as your proof of accommodations at Schoolcraft. We only can provide academic accommodations, so we cannot modify curriculum at the college level. So you're not able to adjust a learning outcome for a class. The school, at the high school, the school must identify your disability, and at the college level, the student must self-identify to the Disability Support Service office. So you would be responsible, if you want to use accommodations, to meet with my office and then present some documentation. And then we'll go to the next slide. All right. Another important thing to note is that at the college level, parents or guardians or loved ones do not have access to student records. Once you come to Schoolcraft and you're of 18 years or older, in the event, we do not readily share that information with anyone unless you consent to us doing so. In the event that you want to give access to someone in your life, the student would be required to fill out a FERPA form, which stands for a Family and Education Rights and Privacy Act. And that would essentially consent to us releasing some information to that specific person in your life. At the high school level, it may be common for teachers to remind students of when things are due, to keep track of assignments. At the college level, the student is going to be responsible for doing that. Instructors will provide a course syllabus at the beginning of the semester that will let students know when things are due, but it will be your responsibility to make sure you're keeping track of that. And then again, just to touch on, I think I kind of already alluded to this, but at the high school level, the school would arrange accommodations and oftentimes parents would advocate. At the college level, students are going to be self-advocating for themselves. And then with the help of me, in the event that that is needed, I would provide advocacy for you here. But we really rely on the student to be the one to make us aware of their needs so that we can support them here at Schoolcraft. I like to talk about things that are not accommodations because sometimes, when students transition from high school to college, there are some things that we can't provide as an accommodation at the college level that may have been given in high school. One of them is a note card or an aid on an assessment. So we are not able to provide that as an accommodation. If an instructor allows their class to utilize a note card or note page on an exam, that is completely fine. We cannot require every instructor to do that because it would be seen as altering the learning outcome of the class. So we cannot provide that as an accommodation. Other things we cannot do is we can't provide extensions on homework or assignments, whether it be like a paper or presentation, as an accommodation. So sometimes students in high school will get like a day or two extra to turn things in. At the college level, we can't provide that as an accommodation. Now, there may be instances in which an extension may be warranted due to an emergency or maybe illness. And typically, we ask that students work with their instructors to identify if an extension can be given. But as an accommodation, we can't provide that, for all situations. Another accommodation we can't provide is unlimited test time. We do have restrictions around the amount of time that we can provide. We do provide extended time on assessments, and that is something that we would go over during our meeting, essentially assessing if that is something that is needed or not. And then lastly, a lot of students have, asked if they can be exempt from giving a speech or presentation, and the answer is we can't necessarily provide it as an accommodation, because if giving a speech or presentation is a part of the learning outcome of the class, I can't provide an accommodation that would get a student out of doing that. In the event that it's not a learning outcome, we can work with the instructor to see if they're willing to, make an alteration, but it's not guaranteed. right? These are some of the types of accommodations that we provide. There's two major areas, the first being testing accommodations. So we do have testing accommodations that we provide students. The first being extended time. So sometimes students benefit from having a little bit of extra time to complete their exam, midterm, final. And so we definitely can provide that. So typically we extend time and a half, which would mean if your instructor is giving an hour to complete an exam, you would be eligible for an hour and a half, as an example. In some specific instances, we may provide double time, but that would be dependent on a couple of things that we would talk about during our appointment. We do have assistive reading and writing technology. So this is a technology that students are able to use when they're testing. So the reading technology is a sophisticated software that essentially allows a student to highlight an exam and have the exam read out loud. And the writing technology is a kind of a speech to text function. So it would allow the student to speak and then the computer would type what they are saying into the computer. A lot of students benefit from something called the reduced distraction environment. So we do have that at Schoolcraft. It is an area where less individuals are in the room at once, and students are sat at a desk with kind of many walls on either side of you, so you're not visually able to see others when you're testing, to eliminate as many visual distractions. And then in the event students are easily distracted by auditory noises, the testing center can provide noise canceling headphones or earplugs to eliminate that. We also are able to provide students the ability to type a handwritten response if that was required of them. So things like short answer or essay responses for assessments, we can extend the ability for a student to use a word processor as opposed to handwrite things. Some in-class accommodations that we can extend, the use of a calculator for a non-calculator assessment. This would be for students who have a disability in math. We do have multiple note-taking accommodations. So some to note are the ability to audio record lecture, so students can listen back to the lecture as many times as they want. The ability to have a peer note taker. So this would essentially pair a student with someone in their class who would voluntarily be giving notes to them. This would be to use as a supplement to supplement the notes that the student's taking, but it would provide them a second copy of someone else's notes. And then we also can provide students the ability to get visual aids on the board if the instructor is not readily providing those to students. So that means that you could either take a picture with your phone or request this instructor give a PowerPoint or diagram digitally or a paper copy. We also provide students advance notice for in-class reading and writing heavy assignments. So this would act as giving the student a heads up in the event they were going to have to do something reading or writing extensive in class, so that they could prepare before that class period for that activity. And we can provide students the ability to use a laptop in class if they prefer to take notes that way. Next slide. Other things, we do provide, Other accommodations we provide is sign language interpreting and closed captioning services. We would have to individually arrange those for students, but we'd be more than happy to do. So we recommend that if a student does need closed captioning services or a sign language interpreting, that you meet with our office at least, ideally a month before classes start but at least 2 weeks ahead of time so we can arrange services for that student. We are able to provide enlarged handouts and assessments for students when they have a visual impairment, and alternative options to Scantrons. At times when students have chronic health conditions, we are able to provide modified attendance in the event a student exhibits flare-ups that may impact their ability to attend class. And so if that is something that a student deals with, we would talk about at that time when we set aside accommodations and how that would work. Other things that we provide is the ability to sit close to the front of the room and the ability to take breaks during class outside of a scheduled break that maybe the instructor will provide. And for students who experience anxiety, we're able to provide students accommodation that essentially is called avoid unexpected classroom interaction. And what this means is that this instructor would be informed not to call on the student directly to maybe answer a question or read out loud, but it would not exempt a student from participating in class. So the individual that is requesting this accommodation would work with their instructor to arrange how they're going to participate in class without being called on. So these are common accommodations we provide. This is an example of what an accommodation memo would look like from my office. So as you can see, it's a lot shorter than a 504 IEP plan. It is one page, and it would state your name, the date that accommodations were put in place, and have some legal information at the top regarding ADA law. And then towards the middle to bottom part of that document, we would list the accommodations that a student is eligible for. As I stated earlier, there is no diagnosis on on the accommodation memo, unlike the IEP and 504 in high school. So your instructors will not have any information regarding your disability, regarding previous accommodations, anything like that. All that they're going to get is the accommodations that you're approved to use, as well as your name and the date that they were set up. Okay. In order to schedule an appointment with our office, as I stated earlier, we want you to be an admitted student, and then you would need to submit documentation to us. It can either be faxed at the number below, or it can be scanned and emailed to our email address, which is dfs@schoolcraft.edu. Once we receive that documentation, then we'd be able to schedule an appointment to set up academic accommodations for you. In the event that you would also like assistance for advising and education planning, then we would likely ask that you bring either an SAT or ACT score within the last 3 years. If you're a student that has had a college credit before, we could ask for the college transcript. And if you don't have either, I know a lot of individuals didn't take the SAT or ACT due to COVID. Then we can talk about having you take a placement exam at Schoolcraft to ensure that we're going to be appropriately placing you into classes. So at times, students will take the placement test and do the we'll do advising and the accommodations in one meeting. Other times it may make more sense to set up accommodations first and then have you go take our placement exam with your approved testing accommodations, and then schedule a follow-up appointment to discuss academic advising. So we will do, whatever the student wants in regards to that. And then next slide. Things to know about accommodations. So once accommodations are set up, as of right now, they're good to go for the future. So I know in high school, a lot of high schools require students to regularly meet with their counselor to kind of reinstate accommodations each year or each semester. Once accommodations are in place at Schoolcraft, they're good to go for the future. So a student would not be required to meet with me each semester to get their approved accommodations. They'll just be in place, ready for you to use. In the event we need updated documentation, If your disability is not permanent, we would ask for that. One thing to note is we cannot apply accommodations retroactively. So what I mean by that is, in the event you decide to come to Schoolcraft and not meet with me, and then set up accommodations in the middle of the semester, the accommodations would be good from that day that we set up accommodations moving forward. We can't go back in time and apply an accommodation to something that's already been passed or turned in. At times, students may need to modify accommodations if needs change, and so we can always do that if needed. We may ask for updated documentation at that time, if that is the case. It depends on the situation. Another important thing to mention is that at the college level, faculty or your instructors are not going to approach you about your accommodations until you do that first. So you are going to be responsible for broaching that topic with your instructor. For privacy concerns, instructors are asked not to approach students about accommodations, and they'll wait until you approach them. How you want to talk about that with your instructor is up to you. Some students like to have a conversation face-to-face, whereas other students prefer to do that over email. As long as you're, letting your instructor know what accommodations you want to use and communicating that is fine with me. And then know that our office does not disclose any of your diagnostic information to anyone else on campus. That is something that other people are not privy to. So no accommodation information on your transcript or information about your diagnosis on your transcript, on the memo, anything like that. This is some information on how to get in contact with our office. So our phone number and fax number are listed, as well as our email address. And our hours of operation currently are Monday 8 to 5. I meet with students in person, over Zoom primarily. And then in the event you need to talk about academic advising and things like that, we're able to do that information over the phone. But the initial accommodation appointment, we would prefer to have in person or over Zoom. Right, I'm open for any questions.
Yes, we have two questions. The first question, does Schoolcraft offer remote learning programs?
So we do have some online programs, but not every program at Schoolcraft is all online. So it would be very dependent on the program that you're looking for. We do have more online classes as opposed to remote. So in the pandemic, we had a lot of remote offerings where a student would log into Zoom at specific days and times of the week and then be instructed that way. But since kind of the height of the pandemic, it's kind of returned to either in person or online. There are a handful of remote classes, just not as many remote courses specifically.
Thank you. And then the next question, are in-class sign language interpreters paid for by the college?
They are, yes. So we would provide closed captioning services and sign language interpreting services for students that qualify. We just ask that in the event a student needs closed captioning or sign language interpreting, that there would be specific responsibilities that they would be responsible for. In regards to if they're not able to attend class, they're required to provide us notice so we can, contact the agencies that provide those services to us. We would talk about that during our appointment, but yes, to answer your question, we do provide that.
Thank you.
Yes. Any other
Wonderful.
questions?
Thank you so much, Ms. Pettiford. That was a lot of great information you provided.
Oh, I'm so glad. Thank you for having me, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.
You too.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, now it's time for our 10-minute break. take a moment and we shall be back in 10 minutes. Thank you so much. Hello and welcome back. For our next presenter, we would like to introduce Ms. Kimberly Seals from Disability Network.
Morning, everybody.
Morning.
Good. Thank you all for allowing me to be a part of the conference this morning. I greatly appreciate it. I wanted to talk to you all for a few minutes about benefits counseling and planning through Disability Network, Detroit, Wayne County. We are actually want to just talk about what benefits planning actually is. Benefits planning is, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get my system to work. Benefits planning is making sure that you all know exactly what you have available. Thank you, Tyler. What is benefit planning? Adequate benefits planning assistance the individuals in understanding the impact of work on existing benefits like your cash or your SSI payments or your SSDI payments, medical, housing, personal care service, and food benefits. Next slide for me. Thank you. Why is benefits planning important? It's important for several reasons. It reduces uncertainty about how your benefits will be impacted when you work. It enhances your understanding of the impact of work on benefits to allow you to work on your potential instead of limiting earnings to keep benefits. It also will allow you to discover how Social Security, work, incentive, and other programs can help you pay for items and services that you may need to maintain your health. And the next one, I'm sorry. Next slide for me. Thank you. This slide talks about what we offer and what our services are. Disability Network works in conjunction with MRS, but what we do is we explain how benefits will be affected if you go to work. We can give you a written report that shows how earnings from your job will change your benefits, if it changes them at all. We'll tell you about other community services that can help you. Also, we'll be available to answer any questions that you may have about your benefits, even after you begin working or go to work. We also will provide ongoing benefit management, which can include a new analyst if you get a raise. And last but not least, make a referral to help you resolve any legal barriers related to employment, such as employer accommodations that will help you do your job a little better. Those are just some of the services that we offer. Next slide for me. Thank you. Will MRS assist with SSI? Your MRS counselor can provide you information for a variety of services, including benefits planning in partnership with Disability Network. Disability Network will then assist in coordinating services with SSI to ensure you have understanding of your benefits and make sure that your benefits are not effective. So we just want you to know how they work together, how MRS and Disability Network work together to make sure that we make sure you get all of the benefits that you are entitled to, as well as make sure that you receive additional services that are available to you. Next slide for me. Thank you. This one says SSI and employment. Do I have to report earnings? And the answer is yes, you do have to report your earnings if you are working. You have to report them whether you are the representative payee or whether it is you actually going in and doing the work. There's a link here that will help you understand a whole lot better about how to go in and report your earnings. And that is definitely something that we will be able to help you all with as you move forward with going into work and beginning to report your benefits and reporting whatever you receive from work. Next slide for me. Thank you. It says SSDI, Social Security Disability Insurance supports individuals with disabilities and who have a qualifying history, either through their employment or through a family member. It can be through your spouse or your parents. So if you still live with your parents, guys, then your parents would have to report some of their earnings or report that information in order for them to make sure that it's not interrupting your benefits and that you're not interrupting any of their funding. So that's what SSI is, and how we will help you get through those things is making sure that you understand what that process is like for everybody involved. Next slide. Thank you. Creating a savings account. Under SSI, when you are receiving benefits, there are several different types of programs that you can get into. MI Able account is one of the accounts that you can use. And what it does is a savings account. You don't have to worry about losing supplemental Social Security income or other government benefits. This just talks about what the act is, when it was started, and how it will help you to be able to go in and save money for your income, how you can establish it. If you don't have an account or having a savings account set up already, this is one of those programs that you can use to set that up, but it is through your Social Security. So we will explain all of those things to you as you get into benefits counseling, but I just wanted you all to know a little bit about what happens and what it is, what it does. Ticket to Work is another program that you are able to participate in if you qualify for the program. If you participate in the Ticket to Work program, you should also report your earnings to the Employment Network or state vocational rehabilitation agency that is helping you reach your work goals. So this is definitely something that you would do with your MRS counselor. This is definitely a program that they would let you know about. And we would also try to make sure that you are maximizing your Ticket to Work, that you are maximizing your benefits and receiving everything that you need. Ticket to Work only lasts for so long. I think you have like 5 years to do your Ticket to Work, but it's only a 9-month program. So within that 5 years, you have to make sure that you have completed your Ticket to Work program. So there's a lot to it, but you have to make sure that you qualify for Ticket to Work, and that's definitely something that your MRS counselor will be able to help you with, along with Disability Network. Next slide for me. What if I only work part-time? You could work a minimum amount as long as it does not cause Social Security to think that you are not disabled. You are generally work part-time while you apply for Social Security disability benefits, as long as your earnings don't exceed a certain amount set by Social Security each year. So you guys will receive a letter from Social Security telling you exactly how much you can make per year. And once you know exactly how much you can make per year, you will be fine to go in and work. Working part-time is fine. Sometimes people do go in and begin to work full-time, but we just need to make sure through your benefits counseling and your benefits planning that you don't exceed the allotted amount that was given with hours and everything, so that it does not affect your benefits moving forward. Next slide for me. Thank you. What specific earnings information do I need to report? First of all, you have to report your monthly gross wages. That is the amount before taxes or other deductions are subtracted. Sometimes people get confused and they report their net amount, but it has to be the gross amount that you've earned each week. If you start or stop work, that would be another reason for you to report your information into the agency, so that you will make sure that your benefits stay in line. If you stop working, then that means there should be a change in your benefits. If you start working, there might be changes in your benefits. So you definitely need to report any starts or stops. Increasing or decreasing your wages or self-employment income. Even if you work for yourself or you have a business, you do have to report that income. So we just need to make sure that you report the correct income amount. And that's why the benefits counseling and the planning is so important. The rules change all of the time. So we have to make sure that we're keeping up with the rules and that you all know exactly when you should and should not report. That's what's most important. So just make sure that you do report any earnings or contact your benefits counselor so that they can help you make sure that you get that information in as soon as possible. Next, it says if you start or stop a second or third job, ooh, you guys are working hard if you have 2 or 3 jobs. But if you do have a second job or you have your own business and then you get a part-time job, you definitely will have to make sure that you report all of that information into Social Security so that we can make sure that your benefits are correct. So make sure that you do that and have all of that information ready. Work expenses related to your disability. If there is something that is you need to spend in order for you to do your job better, if there is something that you need to have or do, sometimes you may be able to contact your MRS counselor for assistance with some of those things, but you definitely need to report those things into your SSI or SSDI. If you are receiving benefits and you have to spend money for something, you definitely need to let them know how much you spent for those things that you needed to make your job easier. Again, there's another link that we will give out later on at a later date if you all are interested in some more information. This link will help you talk about reporting your earnings, what it is, how you should go about reporting your earnings. So we just want to make sure that you all have that information. Next one. Thank you. What are some of the ways to report your earnings? You can report your earnings by mail, you can report them by phone, or you can upload your information online. So there is a process for you to be able to go in online and report your earnings. I'm not sure how reliable the phone system is. It may take a long time for you to be able to get through on the phone, but definitely being able to go in and load that information in up online will help. But you do have all 3 of these options to be able to go in and report your earnings, and that is awesome. Next one. Thank you. MRS and Disability Network Wayne County, Detroit are partners to help make benefits planning easier, and we work in collaboration to provide counseling and planning for our consumers. If you have any questions or are interested in enrolling in this program, please contact your MRS counselor. Guys, it's super, super important that you all know that you need to contact your MRS counselor if you are thinking about going to work, if you are already working and you are in the process of waiting to receive benefits, making sure that you have that counseling and that planning behind you to help you understand that process is going to help you enormously once you start this process. So please make sure that you contact your MRS counselor and let them know if you have any questions or concerns. If you are interested, or if you're even thinking about beginning to go to work, you should let them know ahead of time so that we can begin the process. Sometimes this process can be really long, but it's actually very doable. And if you have all of the right components in place, and having your MRS counselor along with Disability Network there to help you will definitely make the process a whole lot easier. Next slide for me. Thank you. Thank you all again for allowing me to be a part of the conference today. I greatly appreciate it. If anyone has any questions, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Yes, there are 2 questions in the chat. The first question, how would I get a customer started with the MyAble account, or should I refer them to Disability Network?
So you can definitely reach out and I can give you that information so that you can, we have to make sure that they qualify for the account if they're already receiving benefits, what type of benefits they are receiving already before we can just say that they can go in and be a part of the MyAble account. It is a savings account, but it does have some restrictions. So you would have to know exactly what type of payments they are receiving, whether they're receiving them through a parent or whether they're still receiving them on their own. So there's a lot more to it, but I'll be more than happy to go over that information with you so that you can find out exactly what's needed for the customer. That's where the counseling will definitely, and the planning will definitely come into play.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And the next question, is the amount of money you can make and no longer make, and I'm sorry, is the amount of money you can make and no longer be eligible for SSDI a standard number or determined for each person?
It's determined for each person. Each case is different. So there's no right or wrong way. As I stated earlier, there's a letter that you receive from Social Security, and that will tell you if you're able to work, how many hours you may be able to work, how much money you can make per year, whether you are eligible for the Ticket to Work program, whether you are eligible for some additional programs that they may have. There are several different things that they have available. Those were just a few that I named today, but there are several different things. So we would definitely have to look at it on a case-by-case basis to find out whether or not you all were eligible for payment. But there is no, to answer your question, there is no standard or set number.
Thank you. And there are no more questions in the chat.
Thank you so much, Ms. Seals.
You're welcome. Thank you all again. I appreciate you. And remember to contact your MRS counselor to register.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So our next presenter is Mr. Roger Williams from US Foods to discuss work readiness and career opportunities.
Good
Welcome.
morning. Good morning. Thank you for having me. It is Rogers.
Okay.
My name is Roger Williams. I am the Human Resources Generalist at US Foods. What US Food is we are a food service distributor. We have opportunities in areas such as merchandising, purchasing, supply chain, IT, HR, finance, sales, and other areas. We partner with local chefs, restaurants, and food service operators. We also offer innovative food solutions and business solutions to those operators as well. We have about 28,000 employees at more than 70 locations. Our headquarters is in Rosemont, right outside of Chicago, and we are a $28 billion company. We are publicly traded, and we've been around since the 1850s. Okay. One of the things that we live by at US Foods are the principles of expecting excellence, stopping waste, talk straight, team up, and you matter. Those are our critical cultural beliefs at our company. And you will find that something that we definitely strive to maintain daily with our customers and with our current culture. I'm going to go to the next page and kind of go over some of the benefits that we have, the comprehensive benefits that we offer to our employees, which include medical insurance. We have dental plan, we have a vision insurance, pre-tax spending accounts, which is like HSA and your flexible spending accounts. We have a 401k offering with a match to that. Because we are a publicly traded company, we do offer stock so that our employees can purchase them through our employee stock purchase plan. We offer paid time off, parental leave, life insurance, short-term disability, long-term disability. We have what's called Recipe for Wellness. These are programs that, in addition to the health and medical coverage, these offer additional resources to help support our individuals, our associates physically, emotionally, and financially. We have an employee assistance program, which offers all types of services for any type of need that our employees have. And we have additional benefits, education assistance, adoption assistance, will preparation services. We have an employee discount plan. We offer voluntary benefits such as pet insurance, ID theft insurance, and critical illness insurance as well. We have 70 locations, as I said, throughout the country. The location in Michigan is in Wixom, right off of 96 and Wixom Road. And we have a list of positions that we're currently looking for in different areas throughout, from accounting. We have CDL driver openings. We have warehouse selector positions. We have a supervisory roles open for our day warehouse. And we also have what we call a buyer, which is a remote position where you can work from home. Okay. To apply for our positions, you would just go online to usfoods.com/careers and type in Wixom, and it'll pull up all the positions I just listed. And you can also apply for other positions throughout the country, not just at the Wixom location. Okay. Any questions on US Foods or anything that I've said about applying for any opportunities?
Yes, does the buyer position require any prior experience?
It does. You have to have some buying experience. We can talk offline if someone's interested in applying to that role.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
There are no additional questions. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much. So our next presenters are pre-ed counselors, Ms. Janelle Richard McWilliams, Ms. Rakesha Smith, and Ms. Cheryl Green.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome. I'm Cheryl Green. I'm going to be presenting the first slide. What is self-care and why is it important and who should practice it? Next. So self-care, the what and when and how. Self-care refers to healthy activities and routines you practice reducing or eliminating anxiety. It reduces stress and it improves concentration. It also boosts your self-esteem, it improves energy levels, and it increases happiness and even leads to healthier relationships. Everyone can benefit from self-care, and here are some of the great examples. Next slide. The types of self-care, we have physical, which entails sleeping, stretching, walking, exercising, nutrition, and yoga. Another form of self-care is emotional, which happens to deal with, managing your stress, coping skills, compassion, therapy, and journaling. We also have another form, it's dealing with social, setting boundaries, having a support system, being positive, social media, communication, and friends. Spiritual is also another form of self-care, taking time to be alone, meditation, prayer, nature, sacred space. Another form is personal, having your own hobbies, creativity, goals, identifying authenticity. Space is another form of having of self-care, having a safety and a healthy environment to go to, a stable and a clean space to go to. Another form of self-care is financial, saving, understanding how to budget your money, how to manage your money, how paying your bills, and setting boundaries. Work, that deals with time management, work boundaries, and breaks. Next, we have Rakesha Smith, who will be presenting the next set of slides.
No, actually, it's Janelle. So I'm going to talk about nutrition. So nutrition for self-care. So if you feed your body, you feed your brain. Next slide, please. So good nutrition is a part of mental and physical self-care. So good nutrition is not talking about a diet or depriving yourself of the foods you love. In fact, sticking to a strict diet tends to be the exact opposite of good nutrition and self-care. Self-care through good nutrition is about nurturing your body by providing it with the raw materials it needs to stay healthy every day, both mentally and physically. When you don't eat, your body becomes deprived of glucose, resulting in fatigue, headaches, low energy, and the inability to focus. Next slide, please. So how food impacts your mood. So unhealthy foods and skipping meals tend to make you feel irritable, tired, and depressed. But however, adding healthier foods such as, the oatmeal, the Greek yogurt, fruits and vegetables, those can improve your mental health by offering the body the essential nutrients that it needs to boost the serotonin. The serotonin is the essential chemical in your body that regulates its mood. Next slide, please. So these are some simple self-care tips on nutrition. You should try to take a multivitamin every day. You should practice mindful eating, and that means really concentrating on your food and avoid distractions such as watching TV or being on your phone while you're eating, but really concentrate on your food and how you're nourishing your body. Practice a balanced diet, eating healthy proteins, fruits, and vegetables. Eat when you're hungry. Limit refined sugar and carbs, and select healthy foods such as fish, blueberries, nuts, green leafy vegetables, and broccoli. So these are just some tips on how you can nourish your body, nourish your brain with your food. Thank you. You're on mute, Ms. Smith.
I do apologize about that. Good morning, everyone. Once again, we appreciate the fact that you guys are joining us today. I'm going to be speaking to the importance of healthy sleep habits, often referred to as healthy sleep hygiene, and how it affects our overall well-being. Next slide, please. Healthy sleep tips. Regularity. It's important to go to bed and awake around the same time. That consistency helps us form a regular routine regarding our sleep habits. Temperature, setting a comfortable room temperature. It's recommended that our temperature per the CDC is between 65 and 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Darkness of our room. So that's this triggers melatonin, which helps to regulate healthy sleep habits and sleep intervals, to avoid cell phones, computers before bed. So with that being said, a lot of us, we like to lay down, and we often, we're on either social media, or we're checking text messages or emails, or following up in certain responses or replies. That's something that we need to be mindful of, because that keeps our brain as well as our bodies active, and impedes on the fact of being able to just debrief and letting our mind and brain shut down to prepare for sleep. The ability to walk it out. This just speaks to if we're in the bed and we find ourselves unable to fall asleep, not letting that go on for a long period of time. Get up and stretch, move your body, maybe go to the restroom, go to the kitchen, get you something to drink, because the ideal is that we're still active. Our bodies are not settled. So the ideal is that we release some of that energy so that we can prepare for sleep, and our bodies and our mind as well will begin to settle. Avoiding alcohol, caffeine, that's important as well before bed. The ideal that we begin to wind down. This helps our minds to slowly begin to shut down. Try listening to soft music, reading a book that's calming to the mind, something to that extent, not trying to avoid anything that may have racing thoughts, or anything that might make you hyper or add stress. All of those things will impede on the ideal of you getting proper sleep that's needed. Next slide, please. So when we think about healthy sleep intervals, our sleep frequencies changes over the course of our lifespan, according to the CDC. Outlined here are the recommended sleep intervals and patterns in which we need to achieve healthy sleep. And this is based off of our age. So with a newborn, it's recommended a newborn from birth to 3 months needs 14 to 17 hours of sleep daily. When we move forward to infant, that's 4 to 12 months, it's recommended 12 to 16 hours per sleep daily. And that incorporates you guys might have heard the term cat naps, where it's just very brief. Sometimes maybe if you have a younger sibling, you'll notice that he or she will go to sleep. Maybe it seems like it was maybe 10 minutes and then they'll awake. Moving forward with our preschool aged kids, ages 3 to 5, it's recommended 10 to 13 hours of sleep per night. Then when we get into more of the adolescents, the older children, we look at ages 6 to 12. It's recommended that 9 to 12 hours of sleep per night. Moving forward to our teenagers, it's recommended that, and that age frame is between 13 and 18, it's recommended of 8 to 10 hours per night. And then last but not least, once you enter to full adult age, which is 18 to 60, we need approximately around 7 to 8 hours of sleep per night. So these time periods, of course, vary depending on what's going on in our lives. However, to reach healthy sleep hygiene and intervals, these are the outlined timeframes based off age that are recommended per the CDC. Next slide, please. Thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to discuss healthy forms of relaxation. We've all had, concerns regarding, having a headache. Am I good enough? Am I focused? Are my grades slipping? So this next presentation is going to deal with that subject matter. Next slide, please. Going to talk about relaxation techniques. One relaxation technique is meditation. Meditation is a form of stress relief. Meditation is about getting rid of all of the stress your body has stored up from the past. Meditation helps to improve happiness, lowers your stress, anxiety, and depression levels. The next form of relaxation technique is positive affirmations. Positive affirmations are carefully formatted statements that should be repeated to oneself and written down frequently. For affirmation to be effective, the statements need to be repeated and they must be positive, personal, and specific. Deep breathing is also an easy way to relax and to let your worries go. Deep breathing is accomplished by breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth. Prayer. Engaging in prayer allows for the opportunity to communicate your ideas, your thoughts, desires, and feelings. Art therapy is also a great form of relaxation. Art therapy is utilized to help with gaining personal insight and developing new coping skills. Some examples of art therapy would be writing, journaling, creative writing, I should say, journaling, and coloring. Coloring is also a great way. Adult coloring books or, coloring books for youth are just excellent ways to, relax and reduce stress. Next slide, please. Another way of reducing stress is practicing meditation. It is recommended that, you find a quiet space, such as your bedroom, closet, or park, and that you focus on your breathing. Breathing in and out, 4 breaths, in for 4 seconds, out for 4 seconds. Also, including prayer in your daily meditation. An example of a prayer that you could say: God, please continue to cover and protect me, release all anxiety and fear from my life. Amen. Once again, daily affirmations. An example of a daily affirmation: I am loved, I am capable, I am intelligent, I am good enough. Next slide, please. Another form of relaxation is exercise. Yoga is a healthy form. Yoga is an exercise that brings together the mind and body. Yoga incorporates breathing, exercise, meditation, poses designed to encourage relaxation and to reduce stress. It is also recommended that you go for a brisk walk, excuse me. 2 to 6 times a week is recommended for about 10 to 60 minutes a day. Playing basketball, there are great, benefits to playing basketball. It helps you stay safe, healthy. It helps you get in shape, and it helps you build strength. Pilates is another form of exercise. It's a type of mind and body exercise that was developed in the early 20th century, by Joseph Pilates. Next, we have Ms. Crystal Ridgway. Ms. Crystal Ridgway will be putting together a presentation. Thank you. We can't hear you, Crystal.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, great. My name is Crystal Ridgway, and the name of our organization is DTR Collegiate Seminars. And we're the owners of the Farm to Table program that we work with Michigan Rehabilitative Services. My job today is to talk more about Pilates and how you can incorporate that into your life, whether it's if you're seated most of the time or if you're more mobile. The basis of Pilates is core engagement. This was developed for soldiers that were wounded during the war by Joseph Pilates. Thank you, Cheryl Green, for the segue. Once again, your breath is really important for relaxation. And a lot of times when we feel anxiety, it's because we aren't breathing. But there's a way to breathe, and there's a way to engage your core. So the first thing is, what is the core? Everyone talks about the core. So this is an interactive presentation. So I want you to take your hands, the pads of your fingers, and go right underneath where your ribs begin to separate. So track where your ribs are all the way around your body, and then you hit your spine. Go down your spine, you hit your pelvis, and then around the front. So that whole area that we just outlined is all muscle, and that's what supports our spine. That's why we say you have to have core strength. So that way we don't have back problems, we don't have neck problems. It helps to support our spine. So the first thing is, in order to engage our core, we have to breathe through our lungs. So put your hands underneath on your ribs here, and we want to breathe side to side. So we take an inhale and exhale. We let the ribs fall down towards the pelvis. That's the first step. The second step, inhale, exhale, the ribs fall down, and the belly button goes in towards the spine. So this is sometimes where our belly buttons live. We want to pull that belly button in towards our spine. The third element is our pelvic floor. That's the weave of muscles that runs through our body side to side like a basket, and it holds up our bladder. So sometimes when we get older, we sneeze or we cough, and sometimes we may have little tiny accidents. Well, that's because that weave of muscles is loose, and it has gotten that way because we don't know how to engage it. So the only way you can make that muscle stronger is when you go to the restroom and you try to cut off the flow midstream. And once you do that, then you can engage your core when you stand or while you're seated. So one, inhale, exhale, your ribs come down, the belly button goes in, and we engage our pelvic floor. The other thing is standing up straight. Everyone thinks when you stand up straight, you have to buck your ribs out. you actually make your spine shorter and you make yourself shorter. So I'm 6 feet tall and I enjoy being tall. So I always want my ribs down and my spine to be as long as I possibly can make it. And I feel like I want to grow through the top of my head. So 1, inhale, exhale, ribs down, belly button in, cut off the pelvic floor, and then you sit up nice and tall. So in Pilates, we keep that engaged core and then we challenge it by moving our arms and legs in different ways. Today, we'll have very simple. So first, we're going to engage the pelvic floor. Inhale, exhale, ribs, belly button, cut off the flow, and we're standing nice and tall. Now we want to raise our arms, not our shoulders, just our arms. Make sure the ribs, when we raise our arms, we don't want to buck the ribs out. Keep them engaged. So we keep that whole core engaged. Inhale, exhale, the ribs again come down, belly button in, engage the pelvic floor, and then we're going to take that whole shape over to the side. We're going to inhale and come up and exhale, ribs, belly button, engage the pelvic floor, and take that whole shape over to the left and inhale up. Inhale and exhale. Belly button is in, over to the right and up. Inhale, exhale, ribs down, belly button in, engage the pelvic floor and over to the left. And inhale, stand up straight. Shake out those arms. You might have if you aren't used to this, your shoulders may be talking to you a little bit. And even your belly, holding that belly button in is key and crucial, and your abdominal muscles may be speaking. So the next one also is we're going to have our arms up again. So we're going to inhale, wide ribs, exhale, ribs come down, belly button in, engage the pelvic floor, raise our arms without hunching our shoulders. Exhale, ribs down, belly button, cut off the pelvic, lift the pelvic floor. So we inhale and we turn to the right. And exhale, pull in the belly button and come back to center. We inhale, turn to the left. And exhale, pull the belly button in and come back to the center. Your breath is important because that initiates the movement. So when do I practice this? Most people think that you have to do 100,000 sit-ups to have a core that's engaged and supporting your spine. Well, you can do this in your car at the stoplight, whether you're a driver or a passenger. When you get to the stoplight, you sit up tall in your chair, inhale, exhale, ribs come in, pull in the belly button and lift that pelvic floor. And try to stay in that position through the whole red light. When it turns green, you can slouch again because your abs will talk to you. If you practice this, you'll see that during those stoplights, it becomes easier and easier. Another place is standing in line anywhere. We always have lines we need to stand in. So if you're at the grocery store, stand up on both of your feet, stand up nice and tall, inhale, exhale, ribs come down, belly button in, lift that pelvic floor, stand up nice and tall, and wait your turn. And see how long you can do that. We don't want to slouch on the buggy. We don't want to shift our weight from one hip to the other. We want to practice this so we can actually have a very strong core. Another place is while you're watching television. You sit up nice and tall on the sofa, Inhale and exhale. Ribs come down, belly button goes in, and engage your pelvic floor. So I only had 10 minutes to show you some really simple movements that you can do anytime and anywhere that will help you with your total health. What's important is that you remember that your breath is your center. If you don't breathe, then you can't do much of anything. But it is so beneficial for your health, for your for maintaining and monitoring any anxiety in your body. Sometimes we feel anxious, and all we have to do is breathe. And if you breathe in that way, you'll also engage your core and be on the road towards better health. So thank you so much for your time and attention. And I appreciate the opportunity to be here and share that with you.
Thank you, Ms. Ridgway. Do we have any questions for her in the chat?
No, there are no questions.
All right, thank you, Ms. Ridgway.
Thank you
Take
for
care.
having me.
You too. So we don't have any questions for her. So next slide, please. So this is our resource page with a lot of the links and the resources. You may want to grab a piece of paper and a pen and jot down some of these, this information. Also, if you would like a copy of this, you can, next slide, please. You can contact Miss, oh, sorry. You can contact Miss Marie Gaglio, and she is serving the Western Wayne Downriver School Districts, or Miss Donna Watkins, and she is with Detroit area schools. So those are the two people that you can contact with for information or any questions that you may have. And could you go back to the previous slide so that they can, okay, there you go. And so you can jot down that information. Do we have any questions?
No questions in the chat.
Okay. Well, this will conclude our second annual Wayne County Conference, and I thank everyone for attending.